Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, 2 people reportedly die in Kenya during protests over a planned quarantine centre for US nationals. The courts have paused the facility for now, but the deal has left many angry and betrayed. Also staying in Kenya, many march under banners bearing the names of hundreds of murdered women. Campaigners of all stripes saying that they no longer believe that words are enough from the government in a country where femicide has cost at least 69 lives this year alone. And also we turn to Benin, where creators are turning to digital means to help young people further explore their heritage using everything from augmented reality to video games. But first, the Ebola outbreak in DR Congo is sending ripples of instability across the continent. In Kenya, 2 people have reportedly died as police cracked down on protests over plans to build a quarantine centre for US nationals. The country has no cases of the virus, suspected as having killed dozens of people in DRC since the outbreak was announced in mid-May. But Washington's deal with Nairobi to use Kenyan soil as a screening stop for Americans at risk of the disease has left many feeling furious.
I'm very much against the facility because one thing, if the US are genuine about helping the case of Ebola, they will take the facility to US because they have the technological know-how, they have the manpower, they have the resources to do that, to contain that Ebola in their country. But Kenya is a weak economy and it's a poor state, you see. So we don't have the capacity to do that. So bringing that here is exposing the lives of Kenyans.
The Americans themselves have acknowledged and have confirmed that they do not have the capacity to handle the Ebola patients in their country. Why is it possible for us, a third world country, how is it even viable that Kenya will be able to handle corona patients?
Well, the US State Department says it will commit $13.5 million towards Kenya's Ebola preparedness. Kenyan President William Ruto says that the popular pushback in his country is an overreaction and that the proposed US facility is neither unique nor exceptional.
We are a responsible government. We know what we are doing. So people should relax. You know, politicians should avoid reckless, unnecessary talk that doesn't mean anything. I am very confident about what we are doing as a country. I can assure the people of Kenya that the agreement between the government of Kenya and the American government is for the good of our country.
Now, on Tuesday, the Kenyan High Court extended last week's suspension order over the facility, which was meant to open at the Laikipia Air Base at the end of last month. The courts also prohibited the transfer of patients from third countries to Kenya. Our Bastien Renouy tells us more.
A very urgent issue, according to the court and according to the 2 civil rights organizations behind the petitions. They say that the lives of Kenyans are at risk and that there is a risk of importing Ebola in the country. There is no Ebola case in Kenya at the moment. And they also say that the Kenyan government is not following the Kenyan constitution, that before signing such agreement, the government should have consulted the National Assembly or the public, and it was not done. And I can tell you that this Tuesday morning, the 2 organizations behind these petitions were quite surprised when the case opened, because there was no representative of the Kenyan government. Its lawyer arrived much later.
When directions were being issued on the LSK petition, an advocate entered appearance and indicated that he had instructions to act on behalf of the government, but that he had not been told the exact position the government would be taking, and no documents were filed or have been filed by the government indeed up to now. And for us, we read this as a very flagrant, malicious attempt by the government to not just disobey the court order, but to disregard the public views about this Ebola issue.
And indeed, many people here are afraid that the Kenyan government will continue its project. That's why many people were demonstrating in the town of Nanyuki on Monday. The court ordered the Kenyan government to publish the full agreement that was signed with the US within 7 days. And it also ordered the Kenyan government to publish the health protocols that will be followed in order to protect the life of Kenyans. The case will be heard again at the High Court here in Nairobi on the 23rd of June.
Well, in DR Congo, the only airport that can be used to bring in humanitarian supplies to communities at the heart of the Ebola outbreak in the east reopened on Tuesday. Bunia's open after a decline in the reported number of suspected cases. Last week, the Africa CDC cited 1,139 suspected cases, including 246 deaths. Well, after a visit from the World Health Organization chief to DRC and his meeting with the Congolese government, the WHO now says that based on Kinshasa's figures, suspected cases have been adjusted to just 116, with 321 confirmed cases and 48 confirmed deaths. Now, Kenyans have been upping the ante in demanding that their government do more to protect women. At least 69 femicide victims have been killed since January alone. And after cycles of promises from authorities that they will make systemic moves to tackle these grim figures, this week protesters marched through the capital, calling out the fatal cost of their leaders' inaction.
Hundreds of protesters gathered along Moi Avenue to denounce the growing number of women and children being killed in Kenya. Placards, songs, and symbolic coffins filled the streets of Nairobi. The demonstration turned the city center into both a memorial and a call for action. According to recent data compiled by local organizations, at least 69 women have been killed in Kenya since January. Activists say the government promises to tackle the crisis have yet to produce meaningful results.
Not more than 55% of our recommendations were adopted. And for those that were adopted, we are told they are going to be made into laws and some into policies. But until today, we are not yet to see there.
Rights groups are now calling on authorities to officially recognize femicide and child disappearances as a national security crisis. They also want femicide recognized as a distinct crime under Kenyan law.
We have enough reports, we have enough recommendations, and we are calling on the government of Kenya to take this matter with the seriousness it deserves by first declaring femicide and the disappearance of children a national security concern, a national crisis, and then go beyond declaring it a national security concern and crisis.
The concern is heightened by government figures showing that more than 10,000 children have been reported missing over the past 16 months. As frustration grows, campaigners say they will continue pressing the government for concrete action, insisting that women and children across Kenya deserve to live in safety.
Well, 9 students accused of deliberately and fatally torturing a girls' boarding school dorms in Kenya appeared in the court in the central town of Naivasha on Tuesday. 16 girls were killed. The blaze ripped through the sleeping quarters of the Utumishi Girls' School dorm on May 28th. Investigators suspect that the fire was started by lighting a mattress at the dorm's exit using a matchstick and paraffin. And on Tuesday, a monument to the genocide in Rwanda was unveiled here in Paris, honouring the victims. Rwandan President Paul Kagame said that his French counterpart showed courage and humanity for his push to move French efforts forward in taking some responsibility for the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, in which around 800,000 Tutsis and those who supported them were massacred. In 2021, President Emmanuel Macron acknowledged France's failure to heed warnings of impending massacres in Rwanda. But he did stop short of issuing a formal apology. The monument, called The Archive, was designed by Portuguese artist Grada Quilomba and reads, "Here, like an archive, rest the voices and words, the memories and experiences, the feelings and hopes of the victims and survivors."
It also has a space in between, a vacuum, an emptiness. It seems like a passage to the other side, but it also can look like an emptiness, like a space where something is missing, where 1 million people are missing and not there. This emptiness can also represent the silence of the international community.
And finally, we turn to Benin, where creators are turning to digital games to help young people explore their cultural heritage in new ways, using augmented reality and video games.
In 2021, France returned 26 looted royal treasures to Benin, an act that inspired the creation of Dokun Miton. This card game challenges players to rebuild their cultural heritage. History comes to life as younger generations learn to identify these artifacts.
With globalization, the youth of today is less interested in our culture, so it's important for them to play this game to remind us of where we come from, who we really are.
The game goes beyond the cards. Players can learn more about each object with an app.
We are convinced that he will understand our culture better by playing.
The team at the Dokun Miton studio plans to push the digital experience even further. Users will soon be able to relive some of Benin's key historic moments using augmented reality.
Users will be able to scan a flat surface with their phones and watch the reenactment of an event of their choice.
But for these young creators, making history immersive is not enough. They use reliable sources to maintain historical accuracy.
We worked closely with local institutions responsible for preserving Beninese culture.
Attention to details also plays a key role in the app's design. The goal is to create an experience that feels familiar to Beninese users.
The voices, the local slang, the narrative style help create a deeper sense of immersion.
The Griot Gaming's team also tackles the world of video games, a space familiar to young people. Through puzzles, quizzes, and challenges, the app uses gaming mechanics to help players discover their heritage.
There are challenges where users can watch players compete live against other people from around the world. The game also features a virtual currency inspired by our traditional cowrie shells. As players progress, they're placed right at the heart of history.
Other games and digital apps are also exploring African heritage. In South Africa, Relooted imagines the recovery of artifacts held in Western museums. In Benin and across the continent, video games are becoming a powerful way to share the country's history.
Well, that's it for Eye in Africa for now, but thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
In Tijuana, the American dream has hit a dead end. Since the return of Donald Trump, migrants are stuck at the Mexican border. Deportees are left to fend for themselves. But in this city under so much strain, some people are stepping up to help.
Alguna va a tener que ir al hospital, apa. A huevo va a tener que ir al hospital. Es que mira, pa, si te quedas aquí, te va a agarrar el dolor más fuerte, tú no te puedes parar y la ambulancia te va a querer llevar, pues ya me la sé yo con estos culeros.
Honestly, I feel at home here. Of course, this country has its problems, but here I feel safe. I tell my husband, our baby will have Honduran blood and Salvadoran blood, but he'll be Mexican.
Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.
Culture hits the spotlight on France 24.